The JavaScript array.reduce method returns a reduced value of the reference array by providing a previous and a current iterated items on every iteration. So to elaborate that, I have here an sample data called an array of strat pirates. I have a name and a bounty and power. So what I want to do to elaborate that array.reduce method, I want to get the total bounty of this group, total power, and who's the most powerful character of the group. And the reduce function returns a value. It could be an object, it could be the sum of all values. This time I want to get all the total. So const total bounty right here, I want to store that in there, and I will reference the straw hats and then append the dot reduce method. And dot reduce method accepts two parameters. The first is the callback function, and then the next is the initial value. But let's talk first of the callback function. The callback function accepts four parameters: the previous value, the current value, the current index, and the array, the copy of this array. But we don't need that right now. We need just the previous and the current. So I will store the let sum of the previous value plus the current value. Current that I will call that, because we're dealing with bounty, I'll reference the bounty in here, and I will return sum. Whatever the returned value in here will be passed to the previous. The previous also acts like accumulator, so whatever the value I return in here, it will be again the previous value in the next iteration. If I write 10, it will be added in here 10, and this one will be 10, and if I return 20, I will return 20, and this again will be 20, and the current bounty will just be the current iteration in the object right there. So let's try what's the output of this one. So it's wrong, it's an object, because I have a problem right here. The previous now, because I did not pass anything in the second parameter of the reduce function, the previous now will be the first item of the iteration. Then the current will be 0. But what happens with this is that previous now, this is an object and not a number. So even if I add a bounty right here, it will return none, because if I add bounty right there, it will return none because I'm returning now the sum. If I return the sum of this, it will be the next previous, right? So the previous item is not an object anymore. It's already a number. So that will return undefined. This will become undefined or none, and I will have trouble with that as well. Okay, none. So what's the solution for this one is I have to return, and I just want to deal with numbers. So the first previous, I want to start with 0. I want the previous item will be 0, so that I don't have any trouble anymore with dealing with objects and numbers. I want just to deal with the current bounty right here, and then I just want to add up whatever it is that's coming in each iteration. So I want to start with 0, 0 plus 1500, 1500 plus this one and this one, and we'll check what's the answer to that. So it's 2400. So what's going on behind the scenes in each iteration? So let's console.log. So I have here the previous value, the current bounty, and the sum. So the previous, yeah, because I added that initial value of 0, it will be 0. And the current item is Luffy. And then the total is 1500 because we are summing that up. And then in the next iteration, look, the previous value now is the 1500, the total. That's what we returned here. When we return, it will now be the previous. Okay, so the total now will be the previous, and the current is this one, 500, and then we have a total of 200. In the next iteration again, because we have returned it, our total will become our previous, our accumulated item, and then we'll have the previous, current, and then the total value, and that's the iteration stops because we reached the end of the array. So that's how the array that reduce works. So another example of that is this: what's the total power of the straw hats? So it's the same logic right there. We just have a previous and the current, and then I'm going to turn the previous, that current, and start with 0. Have total power of 275. Actually, because this is an arrow function, you can just do this one. Previous, current power. It's just gonna because you can do a one-liner code in there. This is gonna remove that and start with 0. So that will work as well. So that will work as well. But yeah, you can just shorten that into prev or car for current, and you can just do this one as well, and then it will be a one-liner code right there. So that's pretty much what you can do with the reduce function. But this time, who's the most powerful character of the group? So this time we're dealing with object, and we're not dealing with the total or the sum or the subtracting, multiplication. We're dealing with who's the boss right here. So you can the reduce function, you can also do that to get the highest who's the boss. Okay, who's the boss of the group. So I have here the straw hats reduce, same as previous and current, but this time, as you can see, I'm not adding an initial value right here, because I'm just dealing with the objects right here. I'm not dealing with maybe a little bit of complexity in here. So I'm just dealing with objects right here. So my previous value can be my first, because I'm not iterating anything. I'm just checking. So I'm not I'm not doing the math. I'm not doing any calculations. So I'm just gonna return whatever the object I want to return, the object, or I want to return this object or that object. But this time I want to return the object where the current power is greater than the previous power. So I'm gonna return the current power, and then if this is not the case, if the previous item, if the previous value is still the most powerful hero, then I'm just gonna return the previous. So let's save this, and it's a Luffy of a power of 100, and I want to check who's the least powerful. So it's Sanji, power of 85. So that's pretty much how the array that reduce works in JavaScript.